league of my own, it don't get better. No, read what I wrote, I'm a bestseller. Yeah, reach for my goals, hit it dead center. Hit it dead center. Bullseye, hit it the most, there's no misses. Something like fish in a barrel, it's no different. Blindfold on me, I still got the most vision. Trendsetter told them before, but they don't listen.
All right. If you're listening right now, take a breath. It's noon and rewind it. Before streaming, before social media, before everything moved so fast, there was a time when music stopped us in our tracks. And it did. When TV shows had us rushing home, when the only notification we cared about was the street lights coming on, people. If you know, you knew. If you grew up in the 90s, you already know this era didn't just entertain us, it raised us. And today, as the official debut of the Rewind at noon, we're talking about growing up in the 90s, the sounds, the shows, the style, who we are today. So whether you're working, riding, taking a lunch break, sit back, turn it up just a little bit, and let's rewind. You know what I'm saying? It would be so dope if I had a 90s song to kind of flare it up right now, but I'm working out the politics of that because I don't own the rights to no music right now. You know what I'm saying? So, we're going to talk about this moment. We're going to dive into the rewind, 90s rewind. First of all, happy MLK. That's a rewind. You know what I'm saying? It was an MLK. So back in the 90s, I remember, in first grade, I can remember this now. On MLK, the teacher gave us this speech, right? It was Martin Luther King Jr. speech. So I think I can remember it. So Martin Luther King was a very fine man, and a very fine man was he. He was a leader, a preacher, and a civil rights leader, and he loved you. If I can remember, that's how it went. Man, don't judge me. I just want to go ahead and put that out there. Put that out there for y'all to remember my brother. He had a dream that one day, you know what I'm saying, we was going to unite together and be an equal race. But we still working out the politics of that part, ladies and gentlemen. So, I am an official product of the 90s here in the flesh. Yes, it is me. Can y'all believe it, 90s folks? We are in our 30s now. We are in our 30s. We is climbing up the ladder. You know what I'm saying? And if you go down the decades, like every decade and every era had like its own look for whatever age you was in. You know what I'm saying? Like 30s for us in the 90s, for us 90s kids, didn't look like 30s for, the 80s kids. 30s for so forth. Like everything molded. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like this, as a 90s kid, we had the best R&B, hands down. Ain't no need to argue. And 90s was our moment. Hey, we got somebody already pouring in. We got a Miss Jonna Marie tuning in to the 90s Rewind. And she's saying, grand day, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Yes, many blessings to you too as well, man. You got to know what it's like, people. All right, so, trying to keep focused, being a product of the 90s, again, like I was saying, we had the best R&B. I feel like hands down, wasn't nobody touching us. Like, there's a lot of artists beforehand laid down the foundation, but when they got to the 90s, y'all don't know nothing about 90s baby making music. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Y'all don't know nothing before survive as an artist right now. And Mr. R. Kelly was the man. You know what I'm saying? Before all that scrutiny, feel how you want to feel. We're not here to judge here. But you know what I'm saying? When he said, you remind me of something, you remind me of my Jeep. Y'all don't know nothing about public service announcement. That yippee-ki-yo, yippee-ki-yay. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Y'all wasn't built like that. Y'all weren't even built for that H-time. Emotions can make you cry sometimes. And somebody was knocking the boots. Am I leading y'all somewhere with it? Am I taking y'all back a little bit? You know what I'm saying? Before I got into the show, I had my 90s vibe going. I was listening to that Quad City DJs. Come on, Ride That Train, one of my favorite songs of the 90s. Brings back so many memories. Shout out to my auntie Jeannie. You know what I'm saying? My auntie Jeannie, like her hanging out, growing up around her and her kids. That was like our vibe. She used to come get us on the weekends and take us to like the lake. I remember she took us to like this little lake spot and out to the track field back then. You know, it's cool to hang out at a track field during that era. And I could just remember, you know, every time I heard "Come on, ride that train," you was pumped, you was motivated. Like music had a different appeal. It wasn't all about beefing. It wasn't about, you know, encourage you to do so many of the wrong things. It was setting a tone that you couldn't miss. You know, before CDs, there was cassette tapes. Like, you know what I'm saying? We had a collection of cassette tapes. And I was put on the game so early beyond. Like, you all just don't know what it was like to be a kid. Like, it was, this is talking about coming out of the 8-track era. We moved down to 8-tracks and we was getting into cassette tapes as far as the 90s. And the fashion was different. You know, this is when, you know, we started wearing rocking cool corduroys. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Putting on them K-Swiss sneakers, Reeboks, what it was, the Reeboks and Jabot jeans. And then the Space Jam Jordans was at the pinnacle because MJ was out there playing fourth quarter 92 with the flu to get the goal, you know what I'm saying, and bring it home. So it was a time to be alive for us 90s people. Man, yeah, I love it. Like, you know, feel free to tap in with me, you know, share your thoughts on what it was like to y'all, you know. Shout out to G17, always tapping in on Rocksteady Media Network. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, people. And let's not forget, it was fun to be a kid in the 90s. It was super cool to be a kid during this time frame because we didn't know how to do nothing else but be kids. You know, we get together and we played hide and seek. And some of us, if you was a little more on the creep man side, you played hide and go get it. If you know, you know. But that's not what we gonna reflect on. But it was fun to be outside, and you know, I grew up with like my bro, my sis. I grew up with my siblings, and I also grew up with a host of cousins, like cousins that see what I'm saying. Family was so tight knit during that time period that you grew up with cousins that was treated just as equally as your sibling. Like that's how it was. You know, as we look here in our social media comments, parties were lots of fun at the at home and in the hole in the walls. Hey, I remember. I can't say I remember my first time at the hole in the wall, but yeah, you know, that's what I'm saying. That's what it was called grown folks music. There was a separation of music during that time. There was grown folks music and it was music for the kids. You know, that was the whole kids bop thing. You know, we had shows like Clarissa Explains It All, Salute Your Shorts, you know, stuff like that. We got into the Rugrats, you know, coming up for my era, you know, being introduced to Dragon Ball Z was the pinnacle of cartoons that you would rush home to see on TV. And of course, can't forget about my X-Men. You know, it was such a joy to just be free because you wasn't worried about smoking dope. You wasn't worried about chasing no women at that time or girls. This what your parents be say, lead them fast, tell girls alone during this time period. See, every decade, every model moment, every genre had its own description of what people were being classified during them time period. You know what I'm saying? We had fashion things. You had the gold bangs. You know what I'm saying? Them hoop earrings. You know what I'm saying? When it was cool to wear these type of things, the gold links, you know, 4-finger rings, gold plated. You know, everybody had an auntie with them gold fronts. Everybody had an auntie like that. You know what I'm saying? And they all used to get styled. But if you hung around in A50, y'all know my mama was the leader of the pack. Hands down, she had that touch of elegance going on. You know what I'm saying? So I used to sit back and think, you know what I'm saying? My mama being as cool as she was and a part of the community with what she could do in her community. Like I used to sit back and think sometimes, like I wonder how it was, you know, being that she had 5 brothers, right? And she had a sister too, as well. My auntie Shan, shout out to her. But I'm just saying, imagine sometime like what was that life like when my aunts probably used to come around with their little honey at the time, and you know what I'm saying? They want to be like, hey sis, Shonda up with, she want to do a French roll or some finger waves or get her some plaques or something like. Can you just imagine what it's like to be like that at that time period? Like my mama did everybody in the community have, you know what I'm saying? You couldn't get in trouble, and it was hard. It was how can I say? I'm trying to take a minute and let me breathe. Cause man, it was like it was difficult to get in trouble during these time periods because everybody knew who your mama was. And this was a time where the whole community had permission to handle business if they caught you doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing. We was back then, it was jumping off the roofs. We were jumping off roofs back then. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure, the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, like the 80s kids had the whole fire hydrant, summers in the fire hydrant. They don't know nothing. But being that I'm an early 90 baby, you kind of got a peek into what that was. Because I say from about 89 to about 93, like early 90s, you still had a little touch of what it was like to relive the 80s for just a brief moment. It wasn't very long. Because then the 90s ushered in something different. You know what I'm saying? As artists started to shift out, we went from New Edition to Boys to Men. You know what I'm saying? That's how it was. That was the vibe. That was the whole thing. And then, we had new kids on the block as well. And the Fresh Prince, when you hear that drums please, you already know what time it was. And, the Prince, Mr. Will Smith himself, despite how we may feel about him today, he had that moment. He had the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air going. He was the first hip hop rap artist to win a Grammy. Could y'all believe that? You know what I'm saying? You had, of course, the gorgeous Queen Latifah being a part of one of the most iconic sitcoms, living single, you know what I'm saying, in the 90s kind of world. She was glad she had her girls, you know what I'm saying? And that was just a show we had to look forward to back during that time frame. That's what we lived and that's how we breathed. And of course, you can't forget about Marty. What's up? What's up? What's up? Yeah, that was all there, man. Y'all missed it. It was a time to be alive. It was a time to have been had. Because it was lessons without being preachy. Family dynamics was different. Families, it was actually come home, have a nice dinner. And then, that's when TV trays was invented. Y'all didn't even know that. Like, them TV trays was kind of a cool thing where you sit, pull your little TV dinner with your little TV tray and sit back and you cut on TV and you dive into one of your favorite sitcoms. For me, Mr. Cooper, I would take Hanging with Mr. Cooper over Martin. And that's no disrespect to Martin. He did a lot of iconic things. He's great and he's right. And let's not forget In Living Color, the Wayans family. They set the tone. They ushered in icons like Jim Carrey. They put Jennifer Lopez on. You know what I'm saying? They put her out there and so many others. And then they also, they had the experience of working with monumental people like Tupac. They do parodies of a lot of great iconic people that was running the 90s. That was their thing. And we loved it. See, comedy was cool back then. Wasn't no censorship, you know what I'm saying? Because these are people that were inspired by the greats like Richard Pryor and Red Fox and so forth and so forth. And they got to be able to, and that was just so cool. I feel like that was so cool to see all that growing up. And, but still being able to keep my innocence by still being able to cut on TV and catch some road rats, watch a little Hey Arnold and things of that nature. That's what made being a part of the 90s real amazing for me. I got to admit, people. So yeah, that's what it was, man. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Freaknik kicked off in the 90s. And some of y'all might be a little too young to remember what that was all about. But that was an iconic thing, Freaknik. And this is again before social media. So you can't go back and be like, Oh man, that was my mom's. That was my sister. That was my auntie. You can't be sitting there. There's no record books of that. I mean, unless lo and behold, somebody just happened to have the VHS recordings from that moment and then transferred it digitally to DVD. And before DVDs kind of started fading out, you was able to still kind of put that out because before we had USBs and flash drives and all this technology, we had floppy disks in the 90s. That's how everything was stored on the computer. And this is them days, I think, what, during the dial up days of AOL, you got mail. Yeah. I remember it was cool to hang out at places like Blockbuster, the movie gallery, the video store. Like that video store was a thing, just as cool as it was to hang out at a record store. And you couldn't wait for your favorite song. It wasn't about staring at your devices all day, wondering when the artist was gonna put out songs. It was waiting for them to come on the radio and announce they dropping their next album, you know what I'm saying, their next project, their next record. And you had to wait in line for hours to hear how dope that record was. It was a whole wave by itself. And it takes me back, man, because I miss those moments. Because now you don't know, you know what I'm saying, when it's your last moment, as if you, that's why you're supposed to live every day like your last. But hanging out was so cool. It wasn't about pistol toting. It wasn't about none of that. It was just about getting together, who had fly kicks, going to get that lineup. You know what I'm saying? You was getting the high top fades. You know what I'm saying? It was that. You put on your gold chain, you lined up your gold ring. Like you did that. You cleaned up them buttercream bottoms of them Reeboxes, and you stepped and you had a great time. And y'all remember two-way pages. Y'all remember what that page me. It wasn't no call me. It was, hey, hit me on the page. In that moment. Y'all ain't talking to me. Y'all ain't feel where I'm going with this, people. But yeah, it was so iconic. It was such a momentous moment that a lot of moments are kept sacred. Like, y'all remember when it was cool to be in line at like Mickey D's back then, Wendy's, and they could, you could supersize your meal. Like you could get your meal big, you know. And this is back when I remember like Wendy's had a salad bar that you can go in. See, there was a lot of restaurants really had more appeal that make you want to go there. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just this whole put out something just to gravitate to your appeal. It was like really a family dynamic. It made it cool. You know, the 2 for 1 at the Sizzlers was also a thing. Yeah, man, good time. When you want to go out and take your little honey on a date too, and you didn't want her to know that you was kind of low balling back then. So you take that coupon, that 2 for 1 coupon, you put that $20 bill over it, and you slide it over there and pray that that coupon wasn't expired so you wouldn't even get embarrassed. That's what it was back then. It was a time to have been had. And I kind of missed that moment. So I created the rewind at noon to bring back that nostalgic feel, that moment to make you remember what it was like to live, love, laugh, and enjoy life. Like the best way when you had discrepancies with people wasn't about let me go pop the trunk. It was, hey, I'm gonna meet you outside. We can handle this on the basketball court, on blacktop. We was gonna take it to the fields, on the open field, and we're gonna play some two-hand touch football. You know what I'm saying? Well, we can go out there and scrap and fight it out. All right, you got all week and realize that became your best friend for life because you put it to the test. You put it, the grains was tested and you went all in. And that was just, again, a moment to have been had, people. We got to get back to that core, that foundation. You know what I'm saying? Back on again, 90s R&B being a big thing. You got artists like TLC. You got Destiny Child. You had Pebbles at the time too. She was doing her thing. You know, shoot, we still was getting some Run DMC. We was getting New Kids on the Block. Of course, Pac and Biggie. You know, before their untimely demise, we had those goats out there doing their thing. You know, you watched NWA kind of after the 80s era kind of still hold on because then this is right at the pinnacle of losing Easy E and Biggie, and now we was fiending for more. Like you wonder what else you was gonna put in your tape deck. What else could you grab? What artists you could have? You don't know nothing about the boom boxes and coming out Radio Raheem in it with the big old boom box on your shoulder. You know what I'm saying? With the gold links on. Y'all wasn't, y'all ain't gonna talk to me, people. Y'all ain't listening. I don't feel like y'all feel me on this 90s rewind. I don't feel like y'all feel me. But that's okay, people. So, I just enjoy just reflecting back on it. I was into LA gear. That was my fashion. Duck head and LA gear. I cherished them LA gears, most favorite shoes, because they was whew, black leather with the little light up bottoms. I would literally everywhere I went, I wanted to cut off the lights no matter where I went, because I just wanted to see my shoes just light up in the dark. And then I remember having some all red Converse, classic all star Converse. They was all red. That's how red became my favorite color. And I'm well aware of how some of the some colors can tie into gang affiliations. But for me, it was just such a vibrant color. It was a mood. It was an uplifter. It was super dope. You know what I'm saying? To be rocking something like that. After my Adidas was a thing. Then we start stepping in our Air Force Ones. Became the next wave of shoes. You know, that kept going. Like, see, fashion was things. It's cool to go to the skater rink and hang out at. Shout out to Patches. Is it called Patches Skater Rink? Somebody, if you know, you know. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. But that's what we did. That's what we hung out. I remember when it was like kids get in free, kids eat free. If we was going out on a family dinner and mama budget, mama, daddy, pops, whoever your guardian, your relative was that took you out, could get you in there for free, and it was cool. Couldn't wait to go to the movie theaters, eat a big bucket of popcorn, and get it extra buttery and watch dope movies on the, you know what I'm saying? Because this is movies like New Jack City. You got Juice, another 90s classic. We've had movies like Friday. Yeah, y'all know. You know what I'm saying? This is products of the 90s, baby. Like, what may not be considered a cool movie now was like the dopest thing because we all wanted to be like that. We all wanted to be like Mike back then. We really did. Everybody, touched the basketball and everybody wanted to take flight. And I can remember I was a Chicago Bulls fan because, again, this is talking the dynasty era of that. So everything I wore had to incorporate Mike in and what y'all know about starter jackets? It was cool to wear windbreaker suits. Y'all ain't resonating with the windbreaker suits, man, of your favorite team and coming out, and everybody still loved, coming off of Boys in the Hood. Everybody wanted to rock Raiders gear. Of course, that was just the fashion trend for what it was. And if you was a kid, you didn't know what associations that it had other than it was just a fad. Like that's all it was for us. And we rocked it. We did it. And we was proud to rock it. It wasn't about being called lame or goofy or stupid or none of that stuff. We wasn't putting all that out. It was just like, yo, it was cool. You wanted to be like that. Beach cruiser bike after seeing Debo and Friday. You wanted that bike. That was us. When you wear your checkered shirts, you know what I'm saying? It was a thing. Baggy jeans. That's what it was, people. We was living in the moment. We was celebrating life. And we was enjoying ourselves. You know. And backyard barbecues. It was cool to be at a backyard barbecue. What a 40 at. Ain't nobody got no snaps on the petrol. Y'all know. See, y'all don't know nothing about Minister Society. Y'all don't know. Y'all wasn't living in that. Those are movies that shape the culture, especially black culture. I'm just gonna put it out there. No shade to anybody else. And of course, one of my favorite movies within that time period, of course, Forrest Gump. We watched It was like around the time Star Wars Episode 5 was coming out, A New Hope. Yeah, so lingo. I was there, baby. And you know, when you had a crush on a girl, it's when we used to write down, "Do you like me?" Check yes or no. You know, I'm out there being a perfect gentleman. I'm out there still holding the door open for you. You know, being cutesy. You know, and the best water. I saw one of my partners, Big True from Ignis Central, put out something recently when he was doing his content. He was like, "Man, some of the best the water that cured everything was water from grandma's water hose. When you was outside and you hit that water hose water, it was a different effect, you know." And then we got into super soakers. Did y'all know that a black man gave us the super soaker, one of the greatest childhood inventions of all time? When you fill that up with the water, shout out, man. I remember my godmama at the time frame used to she used to buy me one, like for no reason at all. She would just come by the house and she would bring like a boatload of super soaker gear. And me and my brother, you know what I'm saying, we would fill them up. We'd be outside for hours. And there you go, that curse that we had was the rules was you better be back in the house before that street light catch you. If you um a comedy special just reflecting off Eddie Griffin used to say, that's how you stayed out of prison. That's what kept you from going to jail. That's what kept you from doing illegal stuff. That street light was on because you knew once that light was on, and if you went in that house, you was getting BTA. BTA. That was built to ass. If you went in that house when the street light was on. So yeah, people. I encourage y'all to stick around. You know, I can make this a daily thing, depending on how the appeal is. I can go daily with the rewind. I might little moment, might just rewind it a moment at noon. Just want to take a little noon day and have a little conversation. Little recess. They don't know nothing about recess. When the bell rang for recess and you go outside and you used to play kickball. Then you flip it around. Some days it was kickball. Some days it was dodgeball. That's what we was. It was cool to kick it at the playground. Man, take me back. Rewind me back. Rewind the clock. Take me back. And of course, back when the OGs, dope boys, yeah, everybody knew who was that person in their community that did what they did. And they know who your mama was. They know who your peoples was. They give you $5 to tell you to go catch the ice cream truck, go see the candy lady down the street, and they tell you stay in school. And they come through your community. That's when they gave back to the community. They're always bad. You know what I'm saying? They just did what they had to do to survive. But they come back and give a couple of turkey giveaways. Did a couple of turkey giveaways for your families. A couple of back to school. They gave you a couple of backpacks. They did some stuff like that. And that's where the respect appeal was different back then because everything was coded. Everything lived like by a code. And not everything, there's no code now. There's no respect. There's no morals and values put into the things that are done now. And we got to get back to it, people. We got to get it back right. And I hope that through my voice, through my touch of podcast, with my gift, that I can give that back to you people, and take you back in that moment. So I hope y'all enjoyed today. I ain't gonna take too much of your time. I just want to, introduce another new segment. And again, I appreciate all the support that I can get. Check out all my content. Again, that's Rocksteady Media Network. It's a whole, if you're on Facebook, it's a whole page by itself dedicated to it. It's a whole YouTube page. I appreciate the subscribes. I appreciate the follows. You know what I'm saying? I have plenty of content. I have different shows streaming weekly, coming down the pipeline. I'm hosting stuff. I'm doing major things. And I hope to keep putting out more and more that meets your criteria. And again, if it's not for you, then that's okay too. But this is Rocksteady Media Network. This has been the Rewind at Noon. I am DJ Steady, ready, and now I'm ready to let y'all go. And if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. This has been another Rocksteady Media Network exclusive. Y'all be blessed. See y'all on the